Welcome to the Cafcass Health and Wellbeing Podcast.
Welcome to the Health and Wellbeing Podcast. We're now at episode 6, and today I am joined by Carl, Bryce and Chloe Janota. So we've got the Health and Wellbeing team back again. Today we're talking about posture and movement, and we are going to cover some of the benefits of movement, some of the impact of being sedentary and sitting for long periods, how that can affect the body, and hopefully we're going to give you some nice little tips to take away and implement in your day-to-day lives. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and shall we kick off with talking about the impact of sitting, particularly for long periods of time. Anything we want to start with around that?
So in terms of like musculoskeletal problems, obviously get like a bad back, sore shoulders, strained neck, weakens your core, you get tight hips, weak glutes, and then also things like it's bad for your digestion. It can contribute to like varicose veins, insulin sensitivity, and it can even like shorten your lifespan. There's studies to show that it can reduce your life expectancy by up to 2 years if you spend if you spend too much time sitting down, basically.
Yeah. So it's on a day to day as well, isn't it? So if you think about so for many of our workers, they're going to be sat down for 5 days straight, pretty much, unless if they're in court, they're going to be sat down generally. If they're in the office, they're generally sat down. If they're travelling to and from meetings or visits, they're travelling to work, they're generally sat down, whether it's on public transport, in the car.
I think it's desk workers sit down on average like 10 and a half hours per day.
I think like when we was doing the optimizing wellbeing workshops and stuff, we did an exercise where you basically get a 24-hour, you write down 24 hours on a page, and then you basically list the amount of time that you're actually either sat down or not moving, including bedtime as well. And I think that quite a lot of people are shocked to see that the amount of time they'd spend actually being still and sat down and not moving. I think some people say that, it could be about 1 to 2 hours out of a 24-hour period where they're actually up on their feet, moving around. And some of them like a lot less than that.
It's really eye-opening, isn't it, when you kind of highlight to individual, within a group setting, you kind of say, well, just think about from when you wake up, what you through your morning activities, what you do, and kind of it's like, well, I get up, I go down, I sit downstairs, and I eat my breakfast. Then I get ready, then I go and then sit down and drive to work, sit down at work, sit down.
Get the lift up the stairs.
Get the lift up the stairs. It's the kind of, you can see them thinking this is going to be quite a lot of my day, particularly if you think kind of, most people are probably in bed for between 6 and 9 hours as well. It's a big portion of the day, isn't it? But just to come back, just to reiterate what Chloe was saying in terms of some of those things, straight necks, sore shoulders, poor spinal health or an inflexible spine, weakened core, tight hips or shortened hips, and weakened glutes. That all comes from like the sitting position, doesn't it? And if we think about that sitting position, it's like if you just kind of visualize it, it's like a squatted position, isn't it? So you kind of you folded in half at the hips, and then you folded in half at the knees as well. So, and thinking then to what you then just said, Carl, in terms of people sleeping, people are probably sleeping. Majority of people sleep in that fetal position as well. It's kind of that same position. So actually, their spines and heads and hips and lower limbs are in that position for even probably longer than what we're actually thinking about. So that might be quite interesting to share, is like maybe an image of the POP sitting position and the impact points of the neck, the shoulders, the back, the abs, the glutes and hips. And people then might be able to associate it then a little bit more, how negative that position can be for optimal kind of posture.
And that's also why when people, if they've been sat, they spend a lot of time sat down, and then they might go to the gym for 1 hour a day, they're still prone to injuries because of everything's a bit tight and the posture's out of alignment, and then they'll just go and lift weights or run or whatever, and it increases your risk of injury because you're not working on mobility and alignment and things like that.
A lot of the injuries probably come in the lower back as well. Certainly ones I've seen. I don't know about you guys, but kind of big injuries, people are like, oh, my lower back is generally pretty sore, or and I suppose that can be related to the two things there, isn't it? Well, three things in terms of that same position, but inactive glutes or weakened glute muscles because of they're being flexed all the time rather than having any form of contraction in that seated position, and the tightness of the hips or the shortening of the hips, and that's I suppose the inflexibility of the tendons and muscles around there as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sorry, Chloe. No, I was just going to say, like, what links to that is sciatica as well. With people sitting down a lot, and obviously the larger glute muscles switching off pretty much, so that they have the smaller muscles within the side. One of them is called the piriformis, if people want to look it up. And that basically can start to have to take up the role of the glutes a lot of the time, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. But the actual sciatic nerve runs down the back of that, underneath that. Sorry. So if that starts to get tighter, that's when you start to get an impingement of the nerve, which then can cause the pain. Which again, it's quite how far-reaching the health implications of sitting down a lot of the time. It's quite astonishing, really, isn't it?
I was just going to say about your core as well. If you sat down all day, you're slouching in your chair, your core's not having to work at all. Whereas when you stood up, you have to engage your core to stabilise yourself and be able to stand up and maintain that posture.
Well, there's that thing, isn't there, about using a Swiss ball throughout the day. Not all day, every day, but if you're working at home, you get a Swiss ball and use that instead of a chair, then it basically makes you sit up straight and makes you engage your core while you sat down. Which is quite I suppose it's a good tip for people if they wanted to think about ways that they can incorporate engaging the core throughout the day.
Yeah, quite a good, when people are looking for maybe an office chair and stuff. The Swiss ball is probably a cheap option in the long run. Like I say, for a cheap but beneficial option, should I say, for engaging core as well. Yeah, and improving posture, because straight away, as soon as you've not got a back support or you've not got there's a little bit of instability on your base, which is your ball. You have to switch on, don't you? You have to. Your body has to be engaged in keeping you in a line.
Yeah.
That's good. So some tips that I suppose that's the musculoskeletal kind of impact across that. What kind of tips do we need to be giving? What kind of things do people need to be doing or looking to implement to? I know we mentioned the Swiss ball. Is there anything else other than movement? Is there anything else that people can be doing to support the musculoskeletal system? I'm thinking things like having time to, you know, maybe creating standing desks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do think that's you know, I think that's a good thing to think about. It's thinking about the workstation that you've got, and it's getting a. I think what I find is that there's been quite a bit of resistance when you start talking about a standing desk, because people are often like, I don't want to be standing all day, and it's like you know, I think the key thing to take away is that it's not about standing all day every day. It's about spending some of your time throughout the day where you're not sat down, and then obviously building up the more that you can do that. And one tip that I give to people is that when you're doing a bit of work where you're doing quite a lot of reading, you're not doing a lot of typing, you know, that's when I would say to maybe look for somewhere where you can place your laptop at a higher level if you're standing up, so you can just do the reading whilst you stood up. Because obviously it's a little bit harder to type when you stood up if you've not got, you know, the right setup, basically. So that's one thing that I say to people to start thinking about standing while working, is do any kind of heavy reading stood up as a starting point.
Yeah, that's a nice idea, and I suppose people don't have to, you know, if people, those who are working from home, they don't necessarily need to be going out and forking out £1,000 plus for a standing desk, you know, to have a workstation. Try and be, you know, if you're not typing and you are just, you know, doing some prolonged reading, and you're standing, all you need is a couple of boxes to get your screen to eye level, and you're good to go. Because you're not actually, you know, you're not reaching up to type or anything like that. So I think that's a really nice idea, actually, Carl. And
Same with taking phone calls. You can, if you can, just walk around whilst you're on the phone.
Yeah, phone calls, kind of meet. I suppose these type of Skype meetings, you know, we're over Skype now, and you know, I'm stood up, but I'm not taking any notes. We're having a conversation, so I don't actually need to be typing, or in a position where I can type. So, you know, it's relatively simple just to stand up and be a bit more free, I suppose, in terms of being able to move. Yeah, phone calls, obviously, you know, I'm trying to think of the different, if it's just a conversation, if you're ringing someone for just, you know, for a non-confidential conversation, then yes, it's easy to do that stood. I suppose if you're in the comfort of your own home, you can do it with any call, but I suppose thinking of functions where colleagues might have to be taking notes or taking recordings because they're interviewing service users and things, and it's a little bit more difficult. But it's finding those right moments where actually, when can I stand up and work, or when can I move and work? Yeah, definitely. So no, that's good. And so benefits of, you know, what are the benefits to doing that? Why are we recommending that they do that, other than the bad things? You know, what other function does that movement have for the body in terms of optimizing the musculoskeletal system?
Paul, can I just say one more? Like, just going back to that tip thing, just so I don't forget.
Yeah, of course.
We'll move on to the benefits again.
Yeah, of course.
One thing that we do suggest is, obviously, if you in terms of ergonomics, it's having the top of the screen level with the eyes in it, or with the top of the head, so you're actually basically the screen is eye level. Yeah. So you're not having to bend your neck or look up or whatever else, or look left or right.
That's it.
So there's two approaches that you can take for it. Is one that I suggest to people is that you can either, you know, look at like car boots and things like that. You can usually find quite cheap old monitors that work well for work, that you could use as a separate monitor. So you could have your laptop down on the desk, or desk level, then you can have the monitor head level. Or the alternative would be then to just buy a cheap keyboard, and then you put your laptop at eye level on top of a box or whatever else it is that needs to be on a shelf or something, and then you can do the typing on the keyboard that's separate from the laptop, which can be two quite cheap ways of turning your laptop into more of a desktop. Yeah. Which is a lot more user friendly in terms of like ergonomics when you stood up.
Yeah, it's a nice idea, and you'd be surprised actually. A lot of people have probably got an old keyboard from a very old computer stuck in a loft somewhere. Sometimes you probably don't even do a bit of rummaging around what you've got, or even charity shops. You can get those types of things, can't you? I use an old flat screen TV. That works quite well in terms of monitor. You just plug it in using the HDMI cable. I know a lot of colleagues do that as well. It works. You'd be surprised. It's those types of things that you don't necessarily think about, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Can help, but if you can get cheap keyboard or get a keyboard down from the loft that's been up there, even a mouse as well, can't you? You can you can get them relatively cheap now on Amazon or like I said, charity shops and stuff. I think it's useful.
I know, like sometimes the question gets raised on it about why should we have to pay for stuff out of our own pocket to do our job? But I think in terms of, obviously you've got the option to either work in the office. Well, a lot of people have got the option to either work in the office or work at home. So which is one of the reasons why it's difficult to get funding to buy extra equipment for home use. But again, like we said, because there is some relatively cheap options, the small investment in yourself, goes a long way in terms of the actual, saving yourself from some of the more, ramifications further down the line. That's what I would say.
That's it. I suppose it's just taking a little bit of action, isn't it, and a little bit of responsibility in terms of the, yourself. I think it's a really good point. It is difficult. We don't have home workers anymore. Everyone has an office available to them. I know there's some distance for some people to travel, given we've got a reduced amount of offices, but everyone, no one is now classed as a home worker. Everyone's on an office-based contract, but we won't get too much into that. We want to talk about things that people can do. So, look at the best options. Look at. I think first thing is to just check your home's workspace or your office workspace as well, and see what you can be doing, and then think about, as we mentioned there, previously. When can I move? When can I stand? What tasks that I've got on today? Looking at my day, when is there an opportunity for me to be able to stand and work or walk and work, etc. Rather than just being sat down. That's those some nice points there. So I was just going to say, in terms of thinking about the benefits of being on the move or benefits of standing. Slightly different, I suppose. I'm thinking here around improved energy levels. I'm thinking improved digestion, improved cognitive function from movement, improved hormones in terms of certain hormones that are floating around throughout the day, cortisol, things like that can be impacted by positive posture and movement. Is there anything that pops to mind, guys, that we want to share?
I guess it also increases your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is like the energy you use for everything other than like intentional physical activity. So that's things like just walking around or climbing the stairs or even fidgeting, things like that. So if you're getting up and moving whenever you can, that increases the amount of energy you use, and also increases the number of steps you're doing per day, because I think desk workers, I think the average is about 4,500 steps for women and 5,500 for men. So if you can just get in short bursts of energy whenever you can, that'll help to increase the number of steps you take. I think the recommendation is around 10,000 per day.
I've read something at the beginning of the year that said obviously the 10,000 is there to achieve, as a benchmark. But I think there's some more studies now that say in terms of doing shorter bursts is just as beneficial for kind of improving energy and improving well-being. Shorter bursts, but of walking, but at a faster pace. If you think of you kind of take a general, those who are generally try to get the 10,000 steps in just kind of walk around, don't they? Try and move, maybe go up the stairs and stuff. But actually, some more recent research was saying doing short bursts of 20 minutes. So I think there's 3 ideal opportunities in a day, particularly people that are travelling, to maybe get that in, and that's kind of a short burst before, from parking the car or from getting off the bus to the office, or to the courts. Lunchtime, 20 minutes, and then again same after work. I think there's some ideal opportunities there for people to simply by doing walking in shortly, but increasing at a quite a fast pace is going to be beneficial for people.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as well in terms of like general moving around, you've got to think of like the body is the whole system of the body, or the different systems of the body, are all like large pumps. Everything from like the heart and the lungs, and the way that the veins work, and and the arteries work to get the blood around the system, and the lymph nodes and stuff. So a key thing for, like, if you think about it in evolutionary terms, to make sure that the blood flow is getting around the body, and that all the good stuff's getting in and getting passed around from the nutrients from the blood, and then all the other kind of biological waste is getting expelled from the body. Movement is a key part of that, like moving the muscles around and out of the muscles, and put pressure on the veins, for example, and that then keeps the blood flow circulating fully around the body. So again, one analogy that I use is like, because the body is made up of like 70% water, is that if you're not moving all day, your body literally becomes like stagnant water. And if you think of stagnant water, it doesn't. If you think of a pond somewhere, that pond is a breeding ground for disease and illness. It's not there. You can't really drink pond water to give you life and vitality. Whereas if you think of flowing water, there's less likely to be any kind of bacteria in there, or flowing water brings life basically. Yeah. So that's like one thing to try, and like an easy analogy to think of, that if you're moving around, you're then making sure that you're reducing the making sure that your internal environment is a healthy environment and not a breeding ground for disease.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, Chloe mentioned at the beginning, didn't she, in terms of some of the things that can be impacted through sitting prolonged periods, and such as decreased digestive system as well. So things like colon cancers and stomach cancers and things like that can all become apparent with lack of exercise. I think we can become a little bit more vulnerable to things like that over a period of time, and it sits nicely with that analogy there, Carl. Yeah, good one for people to think about that.
And I think another key one for me as well is about mood as well, and about how getting up and moving around, but also getting outside for improving mood as well. Because we do know exercise is a key factor in terms of managing stress as well. So the more fitter you are, the better you are at being more resilient to stress. Because for a number of reasons, but one of them is that getting up and moving around and doing exercise, for example, it does increase the hormones in the brain, like the dopamine, serotonin, things like that. So it can actually have a positive effect on mood as well. So if you are feeling like you're getting stressed out, or you're working on a project that you're finding difficult, or you've had quite a difficult conversation on the telephone, for example, is getting out and just, like you're saying, doing like a bit of a fast walk somewhere and getting yourself out of breath, and the actual impacts on you in terms of the psychological impact can help with managing stressful situations as well.
Yeah, I think we could probably, Chloe's got anything else to mention there? I was thinking we could probably move on maybe to talk a little bit about the hormones and things, and how it could be impacted through posture.
Yeah, you can move on.
Yeah, super. So, I mean, Carl, you mentioned there dopamine, serotonin. Do you want to go into that a little bit more for people in terms of what can be produced through exercise, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about cortisol and testosterone after that?
Yeah, well, like I was saying there, being able to being more active whilst at work can help with managing stress, not just at work, in life in general as well. But there's one particular study that they had two groups of people. So there was a workplace that had its own gym, basically, like its own leisure centre at the workplace, and they did a study on. They looked at the people that did. That actually used the gym facilities compared to those people that didn't use the gym facilities, and they found the correlation between those who did use the gym facilities. They were more resilient, showed more high levels of resilience, and also what else was it? And that they was more productive as well overall. So again, that's just like one example of how being active can help manage stress, but also can help with like work productivity as well. But in terms of the hormones, the reason why I mentioned that about the gym is because when we do exercise, it actually, you've heard of the runner's high before, have you both?
Yeah.
So again, it's the idea behind that is that basically when you do exercise, it's basically a stress on the body. So the body will release endorphins, which basically, if you think at the end of that word, orphines, it's the same as morphine. So it's from the same kind of family, and morphine's there to block pain. So it's a similar kind of effect. So when we do exercise, the body likes to release these endorphins to help us not feel as much pain from the damage of the exercise that it's doing on the body. But that also has a positive effect on mood as well. Again, which is why you have that runner's high, which is also one of the reasons why exercise can become addictive as well. But again, like I said, it's just something to think about in terms of mood. So if you are feeling like you're struggling with something that's quite stressful, then it's using exercise as a way of being able to manage that, in the long term.
Yeah, and I think when I think about the hormones and posture, and I think back to the Amy Cuddy study. I don't know if you've both seen Amy's TED Talk. That we've got in some of the guidance that's available on the internet. But she looks at two particular hormones, and then looks at how posture can impact both of those, and that's cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and then testosterone, which is kind of that hormone that increases confidence and things like that. So she took a group of individuals and put them into a high stressful environment, and basically it was interviews. So she put the people into an interview environment. But prior to going into the interviews, what she did is got participants in the first part of the study. She got participants to hold a good postural position. She called them power poses, but basically it was holding a good postural position, nice open chest, shoulders back, head nice and prominent on the shoulders, engaged abdominals and glutes, and got them to hold that for 2 minutes, at which she then tested, or pre and post doing that, they were tested their testosterone levels and cortisol levels, and then put them into the interview and see how they did. And then the second part, they did the same, but what they did is they put the participants in closed positions, so kind of heads down, slumped, shoulders rounded forwards, a disengaged core, things like that. All the things that we're talking about in terms of poor posture and kind of poor body language and how we hold ourselves. And again, measured cortisol and testosterone pre and post, and then put them into the interviews to see how they did. But essentially, I think from memory, we'll share the TED Talk because it's really good. But she found that in the first part of the study, those who when they were holding power poses, cortisol decreased by 25% and testosterone increased by 20%, compared to when they were in closed body positions. So a real shift in hormones, and they were only holding these positions for 2 minutes as well, which is quite interesting. So actually being in a good postural position, confident, can have an impact on how we feel, and then often how we then perform, I suppose, and how we manage those stressful situations that we can find ourselves in. So that was a really interesting study that I think people find useful. I know that when we've shared that in the past, I know there's a lot of colleagues and who use them techniques now, particularly before maybe going into giving evidence in court, using the power posing before doing that, before going into interviews or before going into what they know is going to be a stressful situation. They've found that really beneficial and supported their work. So I think it's a really good one as that. But we'll share that in the show notes. Any comments on that or questions?
No, I just think it's interesting. Isn't it? I think it's really interesting that fact that what we do with our physical bodies can actually have that effect on us, both hormonally and psychologically as well.
Yeah. I think it's really.
I think it just shows that we've got more control over how we feel than what we actually think.
Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Like, we do have control. We control our bodies, don't we? And our minds. Whether that's movement, whether that's how we think, what we think. All the evidence signals towards us being able to control what happens and what goes on. I suppose where people start to falter in that is that they're in prolonged periods of stress or prolonged bad habits, which then becomes difficult to overcome, doesn't it? But picking up, hopefully, with giving some nice quick advice here within this talk, that people will get some bits that they can take away. Shall we have a think? Sorry, go on, Carl. No, go on.
No, sorry, Paul. I was just going to say, with that, I think it's, because I think what we do in these podcasts, we do give quite a lot of like tips, don't we, as we go along when there's a lot of information to take it. And I think it's just key to remember that if you can choose at least one thing that you can take away, from anyone who's listening from the podcast that you could implement the easiest, then that's probably the best thing to start with, isn't it? It's just like choosing one thing that you're confident that you could do. I think that's just one thing to take away in terms of implementing some of the things that we actually talk about and start building on it from then. Yeah,
and that's the key driver, isn't it? Because if someone was to go away and say, right, well, they said I need to do this, and this, it's never going to work like that, is it? It's never going to all just click into play where someone straight away is going to change the sleeping position, sit and stand every 30, alternate between sitting and standing every 30 minutes, getting short bursts of exercise, resistance training, do some power posing before going to stress. It's just a lot. It's a lot to take in, isn't it? But if you can, like you say, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You pick one thing, roll with it, create it as a habit, that then becomes norm. Then pick another thing, and do that again. So it's about, I think that it's that cycle of creating habits and then picking the next. Well, what's the next thing? Because again, the amount of tips across all the information that's on the internet, all the optimizing wellbeing webinars, all the workshops that we've done, the podcasts, you've just got to pick which you think is going to have the biggest impact for you right now. Make it a habit, then pick the next one. I think you're right. I was going to move on just to kind of think about some exercise prescription, thinking about what to improve posture, what do we need to be doing, and I was thinking perhaps we could maybe just start at the feet and work up, in terms of just giving some brief quick things that people can do, whether they want to implement some short stretching or whether it's just a new exercise that they can do at the gym. That one piece of equipment that they might be able to buy to do some exercises at home or on the move. So that's what I was kind of thinking. But for me, I think a lot of postural problems start with foot care. So and looking after the arches of our feet. So I was going to start there and and see if we want to work up.
Yeah, one thing I try and do when I'm just at home watching TV or something is get a golf ball out and kind of roll my feet with that and try and like pick the golf ball up with your foot, and it helps to strengthen your arches.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I have my golf ball. I've got about 10 golf balls that are scattered everywhere. I've got one in the office, one in my bag for travelling and stuff like that. I think really key. Just there's like I say, trying to grip the ball and pick it up, but also just that massaging of the arch and releasing some of that tension through the heel, which obviously tightens. You know, if you think about the impact, it runs then through the heel, from the arch through the heel up to through the Achilles and so on, right up to the shoulders and neck muscles, doesn't it? So, I you know, the feet for me are one of those crucial things, and you know, I think we all are advocates of barefoot technology in terms of trainers and things like that. I know. I think we've all got at least one pair of barefoot trainers, but yeah.
Even just things like trying to lift your toes, like spreading your toes and trying to lift them off the floor, like just your toes off the floor, things like that. You don't really move your toes on their own or spread them much when they're like trapped in tight shoes and things all the time, and it's just really good to just move them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you just said it there, Chloe, as well. Tight shoes. If one thing that you do is whether is just take your shoes off at every opportunity, I think, and allow your feet to relax, spread your toes out, you know, stretch the bottom of your feet. Massage them with a ball if you've got one. You know, I think that's the best thing to start doing with your feet, because there's a couple of things that it's, you know, it's not only you know, around that relaxation, but there's some good evidence there around how being in contact barefoot, you know, or feet in contact with the ground is really good for centering us and grounding us in that kind of mindfulness way as well, isn't there? The impact around that. So yeah, Carl, do you do anything with your feet?
Well, everything we just said there pretty much. So golf balls, probably not as much as what I probably could do, but I do use a golf ball, especially the day after I played football normally. That's when my feet start to ache the most. What else would I do? In terms of, like, well, not what I would do, but because one thing that I would think for people to consider about feet and footwear, and like we said that, you know, the lower that you can get your heel to the ground when you're wearing shoes, the better. So if you can find completely flat shoes, then that's probably the best option, which, you know, we refer to them as barefoot technology. But one thing that I would consider, I would ask people to consider, is thinking about the shoes that you're wearing to work. You know, and if you don't, say for example that you like to wear high heels, I would consider the benefit to risk ratio about what you're going to get out from wearing heels compared to what the actual potential impact is, and really consider about, you know, is it good to wear them every single day? You know, is it chances when you're in the office to take them off whilst you know, sat around, or, you know, if you can, unless you're not going into meetings or something like that. And the key one is thinking about the footwear when commuting, you know, whether it's just walking from the train station to the office or, you know, from the car to the office, and thinking about, you know, if you can take a pair of trainers with you while you're doing the commute to the bus stop or whatever it is, then that's what I would recommend people to start thinking about initially. You know, if you're thinking about one small thing that you can do, is try to wear shoes that are the lowest to the ground as possible, especially when commuting.
Yeah, I think that's really useful. Really useful point there. All right, shall we move up? Because I think we spoke a lot about feet there. So if you think about the lower limbs, legs, kind of, I suppose, ankles are really important, given their position on the body, and you know, they connect right then through tissue right up to from the bones and to connecting the calf muscles all the way up. So anything for ankles. I mean, I always recommend doing kind of. I suppose it's like trying to get into a seated position, like a low squat. So you essentially pushing the knees right across, over the front toes. You can do that either from kind of trying to do a squat, or you can do it pushing up against the wall and kind of sitting down, just pushing that knee forward, because I think we lose a lot of flexibility in the ankle. Basically, most people have probably rolled their ankles or sprained their ankles at some point, and it's really difficult then to get back some flexibility in there. So certainly for me, I do recommend people try and get that flexibility back by pushing the knee over the toes, but I'm not sure if there's anything else that we can recommend.
I think one thing is if you sit in a chair and then try and you lift your foot off the floor and try and draw the alphabet with your foot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're moving your ankle and strengthening it. And another thing is trying to balance on one leg. That helps with your hip strength, knee strength, and core and everything as well as ankle stability. You can do that just while you're cleaning your teeth or something.
Yeah, it's now I thinking back to kind of balancing. When I was doing kind of post surgery work with patients, proprioception. It was they call it proprioception, and it was basically balancing. Getting them either on one leg with the leg up behind them or in front, and then seeing how they were getting on, and over time, like you say, I think it strengthens the whole side of the body you're balancing on, really. So you think you've got your ankle, your knee, your hip, and then your core is really important. Yeah, so really nice, really good point there. And you can do it.
Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, if you do go to the gym, you can do a lot of single leg exercises there as well, and increase the difficulty with using weights and bands and things as well.
Yeah, single leg deadlift, single leg squats,
step ups.
You got step ups. Any of the kind of seated leg press and leg curl machines and things like that. You can do single leg, can't you? Yeah, really good. Excellent. I'm thinking, should we move up to knees and calves are really important, aren't they? So should we just have a think about calves? I mean, the simple one is kind of just to incorporate some calf raises or kind of walk on your tiptoes for a period of time. But I think again, there's that kind of self massage. I think that people often miss, or even go into a sports physio or get a sports massage, but. Again, you could use a ball, or you could use a rolling pin or a bottle or anything, just to kind of give you a bit of a self massage, can't you? And
if you freeze a bottle of water and then roll that on your calves, especially after you've been running or something like that, then the ice obviously helps as well as the massage. Yeah,
so decreasing any inflammation in there through cold compress. No, that's good. So I suppose knees, quads, we could probably do as one. I think for me, it's try and keep. If we're thinking about everyday activities, just sitting and standing. Sitting and standing does it, doesn't it? It's kind of you going into a squatted position and then you're standing up. I think what you've just got to be conscious of is just allow your body to stand up without pushing yourself up off a chair or something like that. So if you're in a seat, just try and stand up. Plant your feet down into the floor. Try and keep your back nice and straight, and just try and stand up. I think that really works for kind of knees and quads for those who don't necessarily do too much exercise. But in the Optimising Wellbeing workshops, I do like a 2-minute challenge for people, like a sit-stand challenge. So for a minute, get them to sit and stand up as many times as they can without using any additional force other than pushing through the feet and standing up. Get them to rest for a minute and then get them to do it again, and be surprised the quads are burning, the glutes are burning, just from a real simple 2-minute exercise. And I think that's a really useful thing that you can maybe do. Particularly kind of, I think it's a good energizer as well. We think about those different hormones that are impacted through exercise just by doing that 2 minutes before starting work in the morning. For those who don't go to the gym or go out and do any exercise, I think just sit and stand up as many times as you can within a minute, have a rest for 30 seconds and then do it again. Really easy. But Chloe, do you want to talk about anything that can be done in the gym other than the addition, I suppose, the squatting and stuff like that?
Again, just if you're in the gym, you can obviously use resistance to make it harder. So you've got your squats, different variations of that: Bulgarian squats, split squats, lunges, the leg raises, hip thrusts and things for your glutes.
Resistance bands are good, aren't they, as well? What people can do. There's so much kind of lower leg exercises that can be done with resistance bands. Really, I suppose most gyms have them now, but such a cheap thing to pick up online. Is some resistance bands, and wrapping them around your knees and doing side steps, really good for hip mobilization, hip strengthening. Doing kind of you can do your hip thrusters with those. You can do all sorts of stuff. Squats with them wrapped around your knees to try and stop that kind of lateral movement of the knees, doesn't it? And increase, because you think of the quads, you've actually got 4 muscles, whereas sometimes they're not all hit in certain movements. I think resistance bands are really good. We've got we have some guidance for resistance bands, but we can find some. We can share that afterwards, what people can do with those. But
I think
Carl, anything for you?
One key thing for me about just that thread through all these different type of, for all different, because we're going to go through the whole body, aren't we, pretty much?
We'll try to, yeah.
I would say that, and I've said it before in another podcast, but I really do think it's worth investing in learning and going to see a PT in a gym and learning how to do the basic lifts properly, whether it's squats, deadlifts, lunges, things like that. Because it's just going to save your joints going throughout the rest of your life. Just by understanding how and where to position your body especially when you're doing resistance things. So that's something to really consider, is learn how to do them if you don't know how to do.
Yeah, education is really key, isn't it, in terms of particularly, if you're going to the gym and want to do some heavy form of lifting, even light lifting, I think it's vital to have that education of how to do it. So, we're all personal trainers, but obviously we can't go to the gym with people. We can give them as much information as we can. But if people attend our workshops, we can talk them through body positioning, knees and feet, and postural positioning. But we can't. We're not actually going to be able to be at the gym with you. So I think it is really spend. And you don't need to commit too much, do you? As well, most gyms do kind of introduction offers where you can then just go and say to the PT, look, I want to learn how to squat. I want to learn the technique for squatting. I want to learn the technique for deadlifting, and pretty much you could probably do that in about 4 or 5 sessions to get that. And they're probably the 2 exercises that you probably you can get away with if you know how to do them properly. You'll pretty much be able to pull anything else off in terms of engaging your core, using your muscles as you should be doing for certain types of movement. But Yeah, no, good point, Carl. Good point.
Another thing going back to the feet and the ankles and everything is when you are doing these exercises like squats and things, and try and do them barefoot rather than with trainers with like a raised heel, because it'll completely change the way you're doing the movement and tip you forward. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to use with my clients is get them barefoot, and if they've previously kind of, used trainers or they've got weak ankles or ankles that are not as flexible, is to keep them barefoot, but just put like a little wedge or a little weight underneath the heels just to get them going, and then you gradually move them away. I think that's, rather than having the heel trainer and then putting a wedge underneath, get barefoot, get a little wedge, because it is about that feel, isn't it? Sometimes it's about that feel of where you need to push through your feet for certain types of exercises, particularly squats and deadlifts. Because once you get that foot position right and you get that force going through your feet, there's that connection right up to the hips, particularly for those types of exercises. And it's difficult to get that without knowing how it feels.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, really, again, really nice point in terms of for those who are at the gym, those types of exercises, get doing them bare feet, and see if you can notice a difference. See if you can see a difference within that. Good stuff. So in terms of core, should we move up to kind of core stuff, lower back, abs, all around that kind of middle area. I mean, I think the common practice is that you just try and plank as long as you can, but it's not necessarily, I'm a big fan of doing core exercises in natural positions that you're going to be in. A natural position is not laying on you or not being on you in a press up position and just holding it as long as possible. It's not natural. So I mean, I'm a big fan of doing things from a standing position, so more so just doing your general exercise, I suppose, and thinking about just engaging your core a little bit more. I'm a really big fan of using kind of resistance bands and twisting and moving and things like that for core exercises, but obviously yoga and Pilates are generally pretty good for that type of stuff as well. But anything else?
I guess if you are in the gym doing your compound movements like your squats and front squats, deadlifts, you should be using your core a lot there as well. So it's not necessarily that you have to go and do a load of sit-ups, because that's not really working your core. That's just for aesthetics, really. So I think people forget that the core is includes the back and everything as well, and the obliques. It's not just your abs.
Yeah, the sit-up warriors who kind of get up and do 50 sit-ups in the morning.
Yeah.
I as a trainer and kind of dog, I don't think I've ever told anybody to do a sit-up.
No.
It's really funny. Well, it's not funny, but just from people kind of watching, self teaching themselves how to kind of train, and that they're often the exercises are the planks, sit-ups. They're widely all over the internet, and kind of do the 100 plank challenge or 100 sit-up challenge type thing. But if you think about doing a sit-up, most people just kind of lay on the backs, knees forward, and then pull the head up, because they haven't got that internal strength or that lower back strength or that the strength in the obliques and the lower lying abdominal muscles that that are hard to reach. They haven't got that strength to do a proper sit-up. So I for beginners, I would avoid them types of things. I don't know what you two think, but that's certainly what I would say.
Yeah, I think things like farmers walks and things like that, where you're just carrying kettlebells and walking, that's much better because you engage in the whole of your core then.
Yeah, definitely. If you can do the farmers walks in a good postural position, squeezing the glutes and bracing the abs, I think really good. Yeah. Good stuff.
I think obviously we're always looking for the ideal, aren't we? What's the best way to do something? But I'm just trying to think from the perspective of maybe someone that works a lot at home or it feels like they've not got that much time to get to the gym or something like that. You know, I think maybe, you know, in terms of working on core, to be able to, you know, throw in some planks, you know what I mean? Whether it is, you know, because obviously it doesn't take any equipment. You can do it pretty much anywhere where there's space to lie down. You know, for example, then it might be something for people to think about as well. Is like, you know, starting what's the easiest thing that you can do straight away without having to buy equipment or whatever else it is. So again, but I think the key thing is to think about, like what Chloe said about the core as a front, back, and both sides, and it's not just the front. And again, we can probably find some YouTube videos, couldn't we, or something to put up, so some basic core exercises that you could do just in the space of your own home.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll share all the recommendations in terms of the exercises. We'll make sure we've got a good amount there for people to have a look at. Definitely, because I think one thing in terms of I'm just thinking, big thing that we've pushed before is Adrian's yoga. I know you're both probably aware of that, but it's a kind of YouTube channel, which is really, really good, and she's got yoga for everything, pretty much on there, beginners, advanced, particular types of injuries, yoga for energy. She's got, yoga for posture. She's got everything on there. It's a really good resource to tap into, and that's something that people can get at home on the laptops, on the smart TVs, and things like that. So
yeah, it's good.
We'll share it all. We'll definitely share that. So in terms of finishing with the kind of upper body, shoulders, upper back muscles, chest area, I think for me it's about the chest is one thing that drags, if we've got tight chest muscles, that generally drags the shoulders forward, creating poor posture. So trying to be as flexible within that chest area is really important. So lots of stretching of that muscle group, self-massage with a ball, things like that I would recommend for the chest. And then for the back, lots of retraction, so lots of things where you're squeezing your shoulder blades together, and you can do it without even without any equipment. So there's an exercise called TWYs. So essentially, you make a T shape with your shoulder, with your upper body, and then you can do a W. So essentially, you bring your elbows down, your hands in, and then you can do a Y pointing above. Your arms above your head, so kind of creating different shapes with your upper body, with your arms.
Is that stood up or laid down? Or?
You can do it stood up. You can do it bent over. You can do it laid down. Really, really good. You can do it in any position. I think in terms of being laid down, if you're laying on your front, slightly lifting your chest up, you're engaging your core. You're engaging your lower back as well as your postural muscles. So, if you're doing it kind of bent over. With a nice straight back, again you're engaging your core muscles to benefit, to make sure you're getting those exercises right. And then if you're doing it stood up, you can think about kind of your feet positioning. You can squeeze your glutes. You can do pretty much. You can kind of do. They are pretty much full body exercises, but really good for retracting the shoulder blades and working those upper back muscles. So we can share some images of that. I've definitely got some images and pictures of how to do those, so we can share them. But any top tips for kind of improving that upper body area?
I think for me, I think I might have mentioned it before on another podcast, but one thing that's underappreciated, I think, or not done as much, is hanging for your shoulders. Yeah. When I say hanging, you can. I don't mean like if you're not strong enough to actually take your feet off the floor, then that's fine. But it's just being able to put your hands above your head onto a bar. You can usually buy the cheap ones that hook over the doors from Argos or somewhere like that for about 15-20 quid, I think. But again, I would recommend people to do that, especially if you've got shoulder problems. Is to get a bar and just practice hanging on it for maybe 30 seconds at a time. again, doing that maybe five to six times with a minute rest in between or so. But it's definitely will help in terms of relieving some of the pressure inside the shoulder joints.
Yeah, it's good for spinal health as well, isn't it? In terms of allowing your spine to get some flexibility through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, very good. Chloe, any top tips? Maybe some gym type stuff. I know the kind of seated rows and things like that people might be able to do.
Yeah, they're the main things, and again, you can do those with the cables, with bands, with the machines or barbells. There's different variations of them, and yeah, just stretching out your chest like that. When you can like hold on to a doorway and kind of
turn yourself.
Yeah.
Turn your upper body away from your arm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is one of my favourite stretches. I've got to say that is one of my favourite stretches.
Yeah, it feels nice.
if you do it right, and I generally just go with my fingertips, and then turn, and you can feel the muscles stretch. But actually, it's a neural stretch as well. You can feel the nerves all the way from the shoulder down to the fingertips. You can feel them stretching and pulsing.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite. Like if I'm tight in my chest, or I feel tight, that is one of the things that I will do. Just stand up, and you can even do it sat down, but stood up and just stretch it out. And it can be quite painful sometimes when you do kind of feel those nerves. But definitely, a couple of deep breaths and holding that for a while, it certainly makes you feel good after.
Yeah.
Yeah, super. And then anything for the neck, and I'm just thinking that there are probably a couple of things we shouldn't do with the neck. But any tips for kind of supporting the neck and the purpose that holds? Because obviously the head is a very heavy object, so having a nice strong neck is beneficial.
I think for me there's a couple of things. I think the first one is just to try to be more conscious of how far your chin is away from your chest. So if you find that, another way to think about it is whether or not your ears are on line with your shoulders. Again, if you find that your head's quite forward a lot, especially like if you sat at a computer and stuff like that, that stooping kind of posture. Again, it's just being aware of where your head is as much as possible, because that will start to help to retrain your neck muscles to be able to rebalance.
Yeah.
And the other thing would be to, I know I mentioned it again before on another podcast as well, is looking into the different kind of cervical traction cushions that you can buy, which you can strap around your neck, and that can basically just relieve some of the pressure between the vertebrae in the neck, which can relieve quite a lot of tension, especially if you're prone to tension headaches. So you can find them on YouTube, and we'll put a link into.
Can we put a link in for one of that? I don't know if we did.
Yeah, I'll put a link in. Yeah.
We'll get a link. You get them on Amazon.
Yeah, I got them on Amazon from. I think the one that I got was about 20. Either 20 between 20 and £25 it was. But it's for my own experience, and then it's been definitely worth it.
I think there's a couple of ways to look at buying equipment, isn't there? Some things like this. Resistance bands, a ball, a foam roller, all those different things. Well, if you're not going to the gym, or which I know, from working within gyms, 75% of your members never turn up. So people, you kind of got core people who go all the time, and then you've got these passive members who've just got membership and never use it. So if you're one of those people, think about, well, can I spend £100 on getting some home equipment where I'm more likely to use it because I'm not actually going to the gym, rather than paying £50 a month for a gym membership type thing. And I think, I think there's real there's substantial gains in spending on some home gym stuff than actually sometimes maybe going to the gym. But just depend, it's about understanding who you are, what your preferences are, why you've got your gym membership, and if you're using it effectively enough. If you do have a gym membership, or if you don't have a gym membership but you want to get into exercise but don't want to have that big monthly cost or yearly cost, then getting some stuff at home is really something to think about. I was just going to say for the neck, not to kind of, it's good to stretch, but also good to think about doing some resistance training with it as well. So kind of, I mean, the easiest one to do is if you put your palm of your hand on your forehead and try and push your head back and resist it. That don't cost anything. Or you can kind of, if you get kind of a tennis ball or something and just put it underneath your chin and try and hold it in that position. That's quite good for stabilising some of the neck muscles. But just avoid doing too much rotation, I would say, and bouncing from ear to ear or shoulder to shoulder. Try and avoid doing too much of that. But yeah, don't know if is there anything else, Chloe, in terms of what we can do for our necks?
I was just going to say having a bit of awareness around how you're holding your shoulders and your neck, because a lot of the time I find that I'm like hunching my shoulders or carrying tension there, and then if you just relax them, then it feels really nice. So just being aware of what you're doing with them.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's that self-awareness of the body, isn't it? And one thing that I think the body's one thing we take for granted because, well, we've got it. So we often just think it is what it is. But interestingly, the body conforms to what we do with it as well, doesn't it? You know, if we do some resistance training, it builds muscle. If we eat protein, that helps build muscle. If we don't do these types of things, our muscles are generally quite small and weak. If we're in prolonged certain positions, our bodies then get comfortable in those positions, and that can lead to curvature of the spine, tight hips, all those things we were talking about at the beginning. The body conforms to what we do with it. So essentially, again, going back to that point that you made, Carl, earlier, was, you know, I can't remember what word for word, but essentially, you know, we have such an influence over how it is and how we can make it feel. We just have to take a little bit of control of it.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's been some nice ideas there for everyone, and we've covered non-gym and gym kind of stuff, exercise referral for posture. We spoke about the hormones and the difference there. We spoke about some of the benefits of standing and moving, and the impact of being in sedentary seated positions. Even in fact, it's not just sedentary seated positions; it's sedentary positions. So I think there's been the more research that keeps coming out around standing and working. It can have the same, you know, it can have the same negative impact if you just stand all day and work as sitting all day. So it's getting the balance between moving is the important factor, but the balance between sitting and standing. But the benefit, or where we're going to see the improvements, is by increasing our movement patterns, rather than just our seating position or our standing position. Yeah, I mean, should we do a quick top tips? One top tip for improving posture and movement, just to finish on. Or if there's anything else that we want to, you know, kind of just squeeze in the last 5 minutes or so.
I think one thing I like to do is just on an evening, if you're watching TV or something, instead of sitting on the sofa, I sit on the floor, like cross-legged or something, and or I sit and do stretches and things like that. It's just extra movement and a bit of mobility work. It's just like,
yeah, that's nice. It's getting it in when you can't. It's making it a normal thing, isn't it? And not making it for something that you say, oh, I need to take an hour out to go and do some mobility.
Yeah.
Do it whilst watching Coronation Street, or you know,
yeah,
you know, sat in front of the telly and things like that. So, yeah, nice. Thanks, Chloe. Carl, anything from you? Final point.
I think one key final point I think about this is because, like I said before, there's so many little small things that you can do, and there's so many big things that you can do as well around posture. It's about just making sure the goal that you set is not too high. And start small. Start with the easiest thing that you can start implementing. You know, and just if you don't manage to achieve what you set out to achieve, is don't get frustrated and angry with yourself. Just have a bit of self-compassion and then just think, well, tomorrow's a new day and I can try again then. Because there's one thing, like we were saying before, is that you can try and do too many things at once and you set yourself up to fail. And then, sometimes experiencing failure in something can then make us avoid it going forward.
Yeah.
So it's just remembering that, just start small and just have self-compassion if you don't manage to achieve what you set out to achieve that day.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, I think it's key, isn't it, that we see those, have that self-compassion so that we do try again the next, like you say, try again the next day. I think really, really important. The same that goes to every walk of life, doesn't it? Whether it's work tasks, whether it's posture movement, whether it's nutrition, whether it's mental health and things like that. I think for me, I was just going to kind of say, no matter what stage people believe they're at now, or after listening to this podcast, is just to do a self-assessment and kind of say, where am I at? What's my movement patterns like? And then you can get a clearer picture for where you start. But start from scratch, no matter what. I always think you can always learn something new. So start from scratch. Assess your body. Start to think about how your feet feel, how your lower limbs, have you got any aches and pains or anything like that, and then take advantage of what's available. So speak to us, give us a call. If you've got some pain, we're all the health and wellbeing team are all personal trainers, qualified, and lots of experience in working with individuals. You've got your Medicash available. Go see a physiotherapist. Go see us. Go get a sports massage. Go and do that. Or if you want to go to the gym, use your gym discounts and use that instead of getting the discount. Instead of paying on your monthly membership, give that for a personal training session and talk to professionals. Talk to people who do know and do work with people every day around musculoskeletal conditions, and then start again, because there's no harm in doing that. So that'd be my tip. So do an assessment of where you're at and then start to learn or find guidance to improve your situation. All right, so we'll get the show notes out. There will be lots of links. We'll link to some of the research, to some of the exercises and equipment that we've recommended. We can even we'll put some videos on of some gym exercises that can be done as well. But yeah, if anyone's got any additional questions, get in touch on a number of different platforms. There's the Yammer, there's the Health and Wellbeing inbox, there's email you can contact us on, health and personally, or the Health and Wellbeing inbox. I hope you've enjoyed the show, this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Chloe and Carl, for some really nice thoughts throughout. That's good. Thank you.
Cheers.